Do you ever wonder how two hosts with similar listings can have dramatically different incomes? Or maybe you look at your own earnings in comparison to other listings and know that there's money left on the table. All things equal, how you manage your prices over the course of the year will drastically change how much money you're able to make. And most hosts don't even use dynamic pricing, which adding that by itself and just using the rudimentary features will increase your earnings by 20% conservatively. Now, this isn't a video about needing dynamic pricing because that's a given, but how to tactically use it to knock it out of the park. And I'm going to show you how I manage my own revenue to earn almost 50% more than similar listings in my market. And these aren't trash listings. The one I compare to is actually a really nice house and it has good professional photos and is in a really good neighborhood, but their prices are not optimized and their calendar is not set up to drive the most bookings. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So I'm going to show you the metrics that really matter to make the best pricing decisions. You might want to get out a pencil because this stuff can get dense, but I'll explain it as simply as I can. Like, I nerd out on this pricing stuff because it's really where you can maximize your investment. And these strategies will work all year round by helping you maximize your high months and also keeping your calendar full in the low season. So understanding the basics of listing health and booking lead time. From a high level, pricing adjustments are incremental actions to review your calendar listing health, which takes into account your occupancy and your rates, the historical period, and then make pricing decisions based on that analysis. This is where the bulk of revenue management responsibilities lie, and is truly the driving force to ensuring that your listings are performing at their best financially. This is why even if you use dynamic pricing but don't manage it effectively, you'll miss out on potentially thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars in revenue. So let's talk about listing health. Specifically, your ideal listing health, or the occupancy you want your listings to be at within a certain booking window, like 7 or 30, 60, even 90 days into the future. The ideal listing health calendar shows the comparison between actual and ideal bookings. This is a feature in Price Labs, the dynamic pricing software I use, but the table here is for just an easy illustration. So on the far left column, you have the booking window. That is looking at your metrics from today that many days in the future. Like, the top is the next 7 days. And then the second column is an example of your number of days booked out of the available days in that period. And then the third column is the percentage of those days booked compared to the available days. Now, the fourth column is the important one and what you will base your pricing adjustments on. So your booking percentage goal is key because it shows the ideal occupancy that you should aim to be at any given time. And these percentages are general for the average of all markets. Like, if you're in a beach market, your booking lead time for July might be 90 or 120 days. So your bottom row at that percentage on 90 days would be much higher because people plan further out for their summer vacations, for that high demand location. So for the general example, at 30 days out, 50 to 55% occupancy is great. That means you still have 45 to 50% of your dates available to be booked. And as those dates approach, they are likely to get booked because the average booking window in most markets, again general, is around 2 weeks, meaning people book 2 weeks in advance of their trip, like when they'll check in. So the normal distribution or bell curve for booking lead time, where most of your bookings come in at, should be about 2 weeks in advance, like the chart shows. Now that the baseline is set, I want to show you what an overbooked calendar, where you're leaving money on the table, and what an underbooked calendar, where you're priced too high and not getting bookings, what those look like. So here's an example of an overbooked calendar. In this scenario, you are overbooked because you're just pricing too low and the guests scooped up all your dates because they were underpriced for what they were getting. But at least you locked in revenue, right? I don't personally think so, like, to an extent. I hear hosts brag all the time that they're completely booked out through the summer, or that they launched a new listing and got booked 3 months into the future. I mean, that's great, for your confidence, but not for your bank account. Only in the highest demand time should you be completely booked, and hopefully for prices that make you blush. So a little bit of vacancy is healthy in most cases. What you really want to maximize your RevPAR, or your RevPAL, which stands for revenue per available room, which is more common in the hotel space like I am, or revenue per available listing, which is more common for single family homes. But I'll just say RevPAR for simplicity. So RevPAR is a measure of your occupancy times your average daily rate. So a listing with $200 as a nightly rate at 80% occupied over a period has $160 RevPAR. You follow me? So this is what you want to track and optimize, because an overly booked calendar at lower rates doesn't always mean you make more money. And this might be the most important part of this video, so I'll say that again. Being overly booked at lower rates doesn't mean you make more money. you'd rather have $200 per night at 80% or $160 RevPAR, which is money in your pocket. You'd rather have that than $160 a night at 95% occupancy, which is $152 per night. Just this $8 per night difference when you're booked 300 nights out of the year is a $2,400 difference. And when you extrapolate that over 85 listings like my portfolio, that's over $200,000 a year. This is why revenue management is so important. And it's why I'm able to earn, almost 50% premium over some similar listings in my market. And so can you when you guys internalize this and incorporate it into your own business. I'm going to turn you guys into revenue ninjas. So in this example, I would raise the base price by maybe 8 to 10%. And then the remaining dates within the 30 days could be increased more to 15 or 20% depending on your seasonality. So the key is raise your rates when you're overbooked so that your remaining days get booked at higher rates so you earn more money. Now here's an example of an underbooked calendar for comparison. And you can see the occupancy is much lower. In this case, prices are just too high for guests to book your place. And when you're overpriced too far in advance, all the other places get booked and you become one of the remaining listings just unbooked out on an island watching all the other guests have a great time at somebody else's listing. So you don't want to do that. And there's only so much demand for a market. And if you miss it, you're going to be chasing prices down and earning less, or just altogether missing bookings and going vacant. And once that day goes by or goes unbooked, that day and that revenue that would have come with it are gone forever. In this scenario, I would lower the base price of that listing by 5 to 10% and then apply a deeper manual discount for the open days within the next 30 days. And then I'd step that up even more for the open dates within 14 days. Maybe, they might need 10 to 15% more. And then I'd step that up just a little bit more to maybe 20 to 25% for unbooked days within a week. As long as it's not under the minimum price which you're willing to take for a booking, which is a whole nother video I'll do in the future, but that's contribution margin if you want to research that. I've mentioned booking lead time a few times now, and it's important to understand how your booking lead time fits into this. It's the amount of time from when somebody books to when they check in, right? So if I book today and then I check in 7 days from now, my booking lead time is 7 days. It seems pretty simple, but how this applies to earning more revenue makes all the difference. So let's say you have a high booking lead time in your market, say maybe 4 weeks. If your open days are only a week from now, most people who are staying in that market have already booked. Occupancy will be high for those dates and the demand low in most circumstances outside there, being an event or it's like the middle of your peak season, because everybody has already booked. In that scenario, you're going to have to lower your prices considerably to still get a booking and not let those days go unbooked. Conversely, if you have a low booking lead time, say like 7 days or less, like we saw over this low season, and your open days are only a week out, you can hold steady on your prices because the bulk of the demand still lines up with your open dates. In that scenario, I'd wait to lower prices until maybe 5 to 6 days out before you start lowering and cutting your legs out from under you. If you're the cheapest priced place because you drop your prices too low, you're going to leave money on the table, which obviously you don't want to do. And the whole purpose of this is for you to make the most money that you possibly can. So make sure you understand and track your booking lead time and use that as a data point when to adjust your prices and by how much in accordance with your ideal listing health. So it's important to note that the booking lead time, or that bell curve that we saw earlier, will shift left or right over time and change also by your listing type, and is generally smaller for lower occupancy rooms and larger for bigger units or like a whole house that sleeps more people. Like for example, my 2-bed, 2-bath premium hotel rooms in Tahoe and my bigger houses, they book further in advance than my studio rooms. And the reason for this is that groups and families, that book these bigger places take longer to coordinate, make their travel plans. And they do so further in advance. And there are also fewer big listings in most markets, so they fill up faster, which is another reason they book in advance. So just keep that in mind when you're considering your booking lead time and when to change your prices. And the other thing about pricing is I heard that those who like this video end up making more money on their listings. I don't know, how that happens, but it sounds legit, right? So I take my word for it. All right, now I'm going to share a few advanced strategies with you guys to really drive your bookings. These are the things you want to focus on after dialing in, manage your prices based on your ideal listing health, knowing your RevPAR, and your booking lead time. This is where the big bucks come in, and I'm not talking deer. All right, here's some strategies to stay booked. These are some of my favorites. So the first is to set lower base prices on your Airbnb listing settings to show up in more searches. By keeping the base prices lower on Airbnb while using price labs to override that, you'll show up in more searches when people look for places to stay by not selecting their date range. That's because when you don't select dates, your listing shows at the base rate that you set in Airbnb. It's not until you select your dates that the actual price the guest will pay populates. And because the triad of Airbnb's algorithm is price, availability, and quality, you want to make sure that your price is something that the algorithm likes. And that's generally lower because that's what Airbnb knows drives bookings. Once they fall in love with your listing, the guest, then they click on it and then they start picturing themselves in it. That higher price won't matter to them as much as if they just saw it, on the search before clicking. This also serves to maximize your click-through rate, one of the big determiners in the algorithm as well. So as you can see from the two screenshots, it makes a difference in the search rankings and the price shown. By setting your base prices lower in your listing, it'll appear cheaper when people don't select dates. And when you increase your views, you ultimately increase your bookings, which then increases the amount of money you make. All right, my next one is your minimum stay requirements. So orphan days can kill your chances of a longer, more profitable booking. And orphan days are really just single or paired gap days, like an open Wednesday in the middle of your calendar between two longer bookings. So your minimum stay requirements can be set to only allow longer bookings. And where most hosts make the mistake is setting a rigid minimum stay like 3 or 7 days so that they can only get booked for 3 days at a time. But what if you have an open 2 days in the middle of that 3-day reservation? Or if the average length of stay in your market is less than the 3 days. They are killing their earning potential. And I see it on a surprising amount of listings because hosts think that 2-day bookings are bad or 1-day bookings are bad, that they interrupt the calendar, or that their nightly price is too high for the 1-day bookings. Well, if someone is willing to pay, then let them. Again, Airbnb's algorithm triad is price, availability, and quality. We addressed the price in the last tip, and here's a good time to tell you that if you have a 3-day minimum stay, you don't even show up in searches when somebody's looking for a 2-day stay or less. Your calendar availability drops off the map because most of the markets have an average length of stay of 2.5 days. So that means if you have a 3-day minimum, you're showing up in a below average amount of searches. And that's not the position I like being in as a host when I want to get bookings. So I have an Airbnb rep because of the size of my portfolio, or maybe did. Like, I sold my business to my partner, so I still have her email, so maybe I still do. But anyway, this is an employee of Airbnb, an insider, I would say, call him. And when we would meet and go over the performance of our listings and what we could improve on to get more bookings and earn more revenue, which is why Airbnb has account reps in the first place, they want to help hosts make more money so that their commissions are higher and they make more money. So it makes sense with in-line incentives. And I liked it because she helped me a lot. One of the biggest things she harped on was this idea of availability. She said it's so clear in the data that hosts with lower minimum stay requirements get viewed in more searches, and we already know that more views gets more clicks and more bookings and then more revenue. So if you don't take it from me, take it from Airbnb themselves. Lower your minimum stay requirements. So here's the juice for this point that will make a world of difference for you. What I do is dynamic minimum stays to get the best of both worlds. I definitely don't want 1-day bookings 2 months in advance in my high season busting my calendar availability, or even a 2-day stay in that case. But again, Airbnb's algorithm prioritizes price, availability, and quality. So I like the setting of a 1-day minimum stay inside of 15 days, and then a 2-day minimum stay in between 15 and 60 days, or you can make it 15 and 30 days, and then a 3-day minimum stay for everything past that. So that protects my calendar availability to appear in the most searches, and also protects against somebody making a 1-day stay for a 4th of July weekend when I could rent out that whole weekend together for one reservation for way more. This is an advanced feature on Price Labs, not available on Airbnb, so I would recommend setting that up. But in Airbnb, you can set your minimum stay as a 1 day and then use those settings on Price Labs to override that for specific dates. Doing so, you'll show up in more searches with the 1-day minimum stay that will show up in more Airbnb searches. And then when they select their states, they will be restricted to your stay settings and Price Labs. All right, the next one is last minute prices. And like I mentioned earlier, once a day is gone, it's gone forever. So what I do in most scenarios is I lower my dates as unbooked dates get closer. It's like being a fisherman, changing the bait until you get a bite. The last minute price setting in Price Labs automatically discounts days inside of a certain window by a percentage of the base price. And Airbnb also has last minute discounts feature as well, so you can set that up. Having the setting on eases the management of manually applying for it on the available dates, inside of that window. but you also can manually do it if you want to adjust that based on your demand. And my favorite strategy in the low season is multi-day stay discounts instead of price reductions. This is one of the best slow season tools that I've used, and I love using this one. One way to increase the length of stay and also increase your occupancy is to add a multi-day discount instead of simply discounting those days. For example, if you have a 20% 4-day discount on select dates, only people that book 4 days will get that discount. Like if somebody books 3 days during that period, they won't get that discount. It's great because by adding the multi-day discount, you can incentivize longer stays, which are huge for you in the low season. Maybe a potential guest is searching to stay and is undecided whether to book for 3 days or for 4 days and is weighing the cost. So in this example, with a 4-day discount of 20%, when that's applied, they would see that discount apply to the reservation if they stay for those 4 days, but would not see it for a 3-day reservation. So they'll see the discount applied and see that it's not that much more. At $100 per night, 3 days is $300, while 4 days with a 20% discount is $320. So they get that extra day for only $20, but it's added revenue to you for a day that might not get booked. This may sway them to book that 4th day, adding the revenue earned and to that reservation and increasing your occupancy. These things really add up in the slow season or other low demand dates. Now, I like to use this strategy for 3 and 4 day stays from Thursday until Sunday. That's because most people book weekends and stay Friday and Saturday, right? Like check in Friday, then check out on Sunday. But with this 3 or 4 day discount over this time period, I'm able to incentivize people to book that extra day or the extra days for a discount, either checking in 1 day earlier on Thursday or checking out 1 day later on Sunday, or both if they stay for the 4-day discount. Something else I'll do is I'll select Thursday to Sunday and apply both a 3-day and a 4-day discount with like 15% for the 3-day and 20% for the 4-day so that it appeals to both scenarios. Also, those looking for 4-day stays will see that discount applied to the price in the search at the bottom of the right of your listing, which will include, will catch their eye, will increase your clicks and views, and also more revenue. And now another great way to fill your calendar that appeals to guests who've already trusted you enough to spend their money and book your place is to ask guests to extend their reservation. So if you have an open day on either end of that reservation, you can ask them to extend. You can message that guest and say something like, "Hey John, you're set to check in on May 22nd. We just had a guest cancel and now May 21st is available if you would like to check in on that day early and get some extra time to enjoy the area. Since you're already booked, with us, we'd love to offer you a 10% discount for that extra day. Let me know if you'd like to book it." And then, best insert your name, whatever, your company name. And then boom, just like that, you'll be able to eliminate some of the orphan days on your calendar that wouldn't have got booked by extending a reservation. And you're also able to build trust and confidence with one of your guests that's already staying with you, maybe even creating a returning customer because of your superior hospitality. It's a win-win-win. Now, this one will be a game changer for those of you with multiple comparable listings in the same area, or even those of you with multi-unit places or boutique hotels like mine. So you can ask guests to move to another listing or just manually move them if they have booked a shorter reservation in between open dates, or maybe booked only a portion of a weekend or other high demand date where you can likely rebook that for the whole time or that, surrounding that reservation for more money, all by moving them to a listing that they have, no idea that would have been different from the actual one that they booked. Think of like a Memorial Day weekend at a lake listing where someone just books a Friday. Like it's a great, you got that Friday booked for a high rate, but you probably would have, almost certainly got a family or a group or whatever to book that listing for the whole weekend. Now, because the date is interrupted, it's going to be hard to book that Saturday through Sunday because most people are looking to book, they want a vacation house for the whole Memorial Day weekend. So moving your guests around where it makes sense allows you to appear in more searches, and again, the availability thing, be booked for longer stays and earn more revenue for less work and fewer associated costs like less unit turns, less guests to manage, and so on. So I hope you guys see how instrumental approaching your revenue management can be for your bottom line. For those of you who want to jumpstart, I put together a free revenue management resource with these tips and more, with explanations and walkthroughs and pictures showing how to set these things up. So you can find that in the link below. I really believe that effectively managing your rates is one of the most important skills you can build. And my goal with this guide, to make that a breeze for you, to get you increasing your revenue. And before you guys go, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want to stay on top of your short-term rental game and learn how to scale a multi-7-figure short-term rental business. See you guys next time.